Welcome back to All Hands on Fitness. A few weeks ago, I talked about how many people neglect adequately training the hamstrings. And this week, I want to talk about what I think is another underappreciated group, which are the forearms. Now, you have approximately 35 muscles that are attaching to the elbow and the wrist, and many of these are used for grip strength. But what I found is that many people I work with initially have very weak forearms. And I think that oftentimes the grip strength can be a limiting factor in preventing your PRs. Whether you're doing a squat, a deadlift, a bench press, you need to have strong forearms. Even for sports like tennis, basketball, baseball, it's going to require a lot of grip strength. And another thing that comes out of a lack of grip strength is actually injury to the wrist and the elbow. If we don't have adequate strength and stability in those joints, we're going to be placing more stress on the tendons and the ligaments. First of all, I want to talk about just how much the grip can influence your lifts. Take, for example, a strict press. A strict press seems to be an upper body movement, right? We're using the shoulders as the prime movers, but we actually need to create tension in the entire body. Any maximal lift is going to demand a ton of tension in the body. And what I'll see is that a lot of people who are pressing, whether it's a bench press or a strict press, are kind of loose in the hands. They're going to try to just press strictly with the shoulders, and they're actually losing this entire part of the kinetic chain. One of my favorite books is called Anatomy Trains. It's by Thomas Myers, and I actually cited it in this article if you want to check it out. But he talks about fascial trains, and what the fascia is basically a thin layer of connective tissue that kind of encases all of the muscles. And he's gone ahead and divided up, based on his research, the body into several different planes or trains, as he calls them, of fascia. What I'm going to be talking about specifically for this article is called the deep front arm line. The deep front arm line is basically referring to all of the muscles from the forearms up through the shoulder. And if we have one part of that train or that line activated, then we're engaging everything else up the chain as well. Therefore, if we are doing a strict press and we're thinking about actively gripping the bar and pressing overhead, now we're using more muscle fibers, we're activating this entire part of the kinetic chain, and we're creating more tension in the body. Same thing even applies for a back squat. A squat is, like I said, lower body movement, so you're not thinking about your arms. But I always tell people to, again, grip the bar. If we have, loose hands up here and we're going for a 1 rep max back squat, this is still looseness, if you will, in the body. That's an area where you could be creating tension, but you're kind of missing out on that strength there. So we always want to make sure that we're activating the forearms just to get the full kinetic chain involved. You have actually 35 muscles that are attached to the wrist and the elbow, and it's going to be tremendously beneficial if we can take advantage of those. Now, in addition to improving your lifts, you can actually decrease your risk of injury. One thing that I've noticed is many people with wrist pain or elbow pain actually have very, very weak forearms. Because they're not creating stability in the wrist, they kind of have to place a lot of extra stress, like I said, on those ligaments and tendons. In an overhead movement, I will see a lot of people who kind of extend their wrists to an extreme degree. So they're pressing overhead, and you see them in this position. I usually advocate a more neutral wrist position in which the wrist is stacked over the elbow. Now we're not placing quite as much stress on those tendons. For somebody who plays tennis, who risks the injury of tennis elbow, something like that, you really want to make sure you emphasize the strength of those forearms. Because if we have really strong, for example, elbow flexors, like the biceps, but we have really weak wrist flexors, then we're placing that much more stress, that much more demand on the elbow flexors. And that's how you see people who have like biceps tendon irritations, all of that kind of stuff. Maybe they need to strengthen the forearms a little bit more to balance it out. We need to make sure we train everything equally. And from my experience, pain can be the result of just muscular imbalances. So one area that's pulling too hard, one area that's too weak. We want to make sure we train everything equally And below, I've listed some of my favorite grip training exercises. Now, these are going to improve your pull-ups, your deadlifts, your squat, whatever it might be. You want to have strong forearms, and I promise you, you're going to see a tremendous amount of gains, whether it's just like opening up a jar of pasta sauce or actually lifting up some heavy weight off the ground. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next week.